I do think that the window of time that we've had between the last league game and the first playoff game has been a very helpful one in terms of preparation. Gives everyone a little bit of time to recover, to regroup, and most importantly, I think, to recalibrate their minds on what they're walking into. You know, it's a different phase of the season. I think there's a very different attitude. There's certainly a very different look to this playoff than there has been in any previous one. And of course, as we've mentioned before, it's an identical format to the Leagues Cup. So it's something that we're familiar with and have had quite a little bit of joy with. So I'm hoping that might reap some rewards as we venture into this trio of games against Orlando.
Thank you, Coach. We have a couple of people in the room, so we're going to go with those and then we transition onto the Zoom. For those in the room, please alert me if you have a question for Coach. We'll kick it off with Ben, right?
Gary, it already wasn't that long ago that you played Orlando, and it's a bit unique to be playing them again this quickly, but then to be preparing to potentially play them 3 times back-to-back. Just how different is this kind of best of 3 series to prepare for?
Well, yeah, as I've just mentioned there, Ben, I think we have some very nice experience in, what can be classed as, a win or bust game each time. There has to be a result, and I think that affects the mindset of not just myself and obviously Oscar in the way that he prepares his group, but also in the players' minds. Yes, there are certain aspects of the game that you want to, I'm sure, keep tight at certain points. We need to be a threat and have a threat, but knowing that there can still be a victory for us in the sense of the word in a penalty shootout, and given, I would hope, that the confidence that the guys have in penalty shootouts. If you look back, I think it's 2 years to Philadelphia where we didn't convert a penalty, to what could be described as a far more exciting and positive look to the group from the penalty spot. Cincinnati obviously can refer to Club America and the chaos that ensued in that game, and even the Miami game. To take it to 10 penalties is quite unique. So I don't think there's any fear in that for our group now. And whilst there'll be plenty of respect for what Orlando have achieved and what they're capable of, I don't think there's any fear in this group whatsoever, and we'll be more than confident going into Monday night's game.
You have, what I recall, Gary, the been there, done that players. Do you see a difference in those guys now that you say the end of regular season turns towards playoff, guys who know what this is all about? Do you see a difference, and if so, what is that difference on the training ground?
Do you know what? I think the biggest difference, Ross, in looking at some of the guys that have walked that path, as you're saying, is the relaxed feel about them. There's no stress in their play this week. There's sharpness, but not anxiety when you're watching them train and work. I think there's a collective feel of excitement rather than pressure. 8 months of work, 34 games in the league. We're in a position again in our 4th year where the opportunity's there for us to make a real difference. And certainly from where I sit, when you look around at the Eastern Conference table and some of the sides that have missed out, you're seeing some very good teams, some excellent players. And, for us, this is about the enjoyment and the excitement of the playoffs and what can be achieved now, not pressure. Like I said, not an edgy feel about the group, but one that I think after a final this year, and our first final is something that the guys would look forward to and are striving for again, rather than, you know, maybe the weight of you know, not progressing or not achieving. It's more about what we can achieve. Half glass full, I would say, rather than empty.
Yeah, Gary, you know, with this being the fourth playoff berth for you guys in MLS and 4 years in MLS, and for you and some of the players that have been here a while, has this team's focus or expectation changed from, you know, just being happy or satisfied with the playoffs versus to, you know, really expecting to get there, not just get there, but to make a run? If so, I guess when did that change?
I think you could say probably after the first year. You know, you want to get that monkey off your back, so to speak, and get in the postseason berth, and we did that in year one. So I think from then on, the group have been really looking at progression, you know, trying to put themselves in a position where, you know, we can make that real big step towards a conference final, where you're a game away from the big prize. I think that's what everyone's after. We're no different. I think probably the last thing I'd like to add to that is that those guys in the group that know there are probably not too many conference finals left. And to that degree, those guys, I think, are trying to squeeze a little bit more out of everyone else, and certainly out of themselves. And I'm seeing a group and a team, whilst maybe we can all look and say we'd love to score more goals, there's so many facets of our game at the moment that I do believe have improved. And there's no two ways about it. In these one-off situations or in a playoff world, we're not easy to play against. That is a fact.
Gary, the last Orlando match, not too long ago, right? 3 weeks. How much do you look at that game in preparation for this one? And what were some of the difficulties you found in breaking down Orlando and the way they were able to see the game out as you approach this first one in Orlando?
Yeah. I think there are many things to come out of that. It's always nice for the players to run into a number of individuals that they're going to see again. If I remember rightly, out of maybe what we would class as their most aggressive starting lineup, and Gulo didn't start and Thorkelsson didn't start. So I would expect that they will, who knows, but I think we were able to take plenty of individual experiences out of that, but then also show that in the early exchanges should have really put ourselves in a more aggressive position and positive position. Once we went behind, you're right, they've got the ability, the quality, certainly the know-how to see games out. They've had a fantastic season, in a good spot, and I'm sure they go into this game with loads of confidence. But maybe therein lies the most important factor. In a tight game, it might well be the team that puts themselves in front, and I think we can safely say both teams are more than capable of seeing that result out then. So chances, opportunities, I'm sure will be at a premium. Is there a clinical edge? They'll say it favours them. I'll say we're more than capable of doing that, and certainly capable of getting a result.
We are going to transition to the Zoom, and then if we have time, we'll do any other follow-up. Valer Shavila.
Hey Gary, you've played Orlando more than any other team since joining MLS, and there's been some memorable, I guess, matches, whether it's the playoffs or a US Open Cup match, and some refereeing calls, I guess. How much does that play in terms of this series coming up, and does it play in at all when you're talking to the players, for you personally, and all that?
Yeah, I think it does, Valer. I do, especially for the fact that we have multiple players that have been part of a lot of those games. Those experiences, you know, the heartache of losing games. I remember that Open Cup game, 1-0 up into the final seconds when they equalise, and the game turned on its head. We've also got the excitement and enjoyment and the adulation of winning playoff games. We had a very good victory at Titans Stadium, if I remember rightly, and those situations will be in the back of everyone's mind. Look, without really tiptoeing my way through their team, I would say there's probably 4 or 5 of those guys still around for them. I know they've had far more turnover than we have, but you start to build not necessarily a rivalry, but certainly a competitive environment against teams when you run into them a lot. Lots of things happen. You're right about the refereeing decisions. There were a couple in the last game. I can tell you for sure, nobody can tell me flat out right now that it was a goal because the camera angle wasn't good enough. I can flat out tell you that there was a penalty that wasn't given. So therefore, there are so many, situations that we know for sure are going to occur again. My hope is that the officials get the majority of the big decisions right. My hope is that we can obviously put ourselves in a spot where we can be in the ascendancy and see however the game needs to be seen out. But what I can also tell you is there'll be a lot going on. There'll be a lot going on in this game. I'm sure there'll be a lot going on in the return leg when we come back to Geodis. And of course, I hope we can get it done in 2 games, but who knows? Maybe it'll take 3.
Gary, what's your observations been of Duncan Maguire at Orlando in his first year, and how impressed have you been from a distance?
I mean, first and foremost, what a fabulous season the young lad's had. I remember looking at some of his footage in his college playing time into the draft, and I know that there was some interest from our group in maybe even picking him. Unfortunately, that opportunity didn't arise. I wonder, and you'd have to ask the coaching staff in Orlando whether the expectations were for what you've seen this year, and I'm sure if they're honest they would say absolutely not. But he looks to me like he's got an awful lot of tools to work with. I've not studied him other than obviously the moments that we've seen when we've run into him. But I think the thing that sticks out immediately is his work ethic and the fact that he's been able to convert on, 13 times now this year. I mean, that's a great return for a young centre forward. The most difficult thing in any game is to score. And he's been able to do that on 13 occasions, certainly in the league, in a tough league as well. So, the future's very, very bright for him.
I think, different playoff format, as it's probably been discussed a good bit. But our preparation stays pretty much the same going into any game that we play. We've had a lot of really good matches against them over the past couple of years, so there's definitely a lot of history there, a lot of intensity there in those games. But I think it's going to be a really good matchup, and excited to get it going next week.
Yeah, Walker, I mean, since you guys have joined MLS, I think there's been kind of a narrative around the league that Nashville seems like a team that's built for knockout and tournament play. And maybe your Leagues Cup run was kind of a proof of concept. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on kind of that general narrative, and what are your expectations for this team heading into the postseason?
I think that's fair. I think it's a fair assessment from other people. It's a fair assessment of us for ourselves. You look at, our playoff history, you look at our Leagues Cup history, knockout type of games, they're all like 1-goal games, I guess you look at the Columbus, that's extra time, So I think there's a narrative that we're very difficult to break down, and in any one game, I think, given our stout defensive structure, we're typically in games. We rarely lose by multiple goals. So when you get to the playoffs where the margins are so thin, I think that's an advantageous thing for us in our group, is just that solidity and keeping games close. Whether it ends up working out for us or not, we should be in every single game that we play. And now we have the confidence of Leagues Cup, a good run, of how to handle pressure moments, even PKs. If it comes down to that this first round, we got a lot of experience from this summer, which I think was good. And one of the biggest positives to come out of Leagues Cup was getting teams more experience in these types of competitions and in these types of knockout games. So overall, yeah, I think we can go in with a lot of confidence.
You mentioned y'all's history with Orlando, obviously very even series over the last 4 years, games that have been 1-0, 3-2, 3-1. But what's one thing that has been very consistent that you know you're going to see your face every time you go up against Orlando?
Well, I think, me obviously knowing Oscar Pareja very well, I think that team is very intense. They're a team that feeds off of their manager's energy. And if there's one thing about Oscar, it's like it is his intensity, his preparation, his grit, and you see his teams kind of embody that personality that he has. So you know that they're never going to count themselves out of a game. They're never going to be giving up on plays. The expectation is that they work for 90-plus minutes till the final whistle. There are going to be confrontations where it's, you get in each other's faces. Like, that's just an embodiment of who he is, and I think we've seen that in all the games that we played against them.
Just on the subject of Oscar, Luis Musi and Oscar were doing a press conference yesterday, and Luis obviously pointed out they drafted you, I think 7th back in Dallas.
Yep.
What part did Oscar play, and what did he do in the development of your early career as a professional, and perhaps the qualities we see today in you that were instilled by Oscar right back at the beginning? Yeah,
so Oscar. So he wasn't the head coach when I got drafted, but came in for my second season, which was actually kind of interesting because he had the 6th pick, which is at Colorado. So he passed on me. So we're aware of those things, and my early years with him, like, it was a struggle for sure. I battled a lot of injuries. He was skeptical of my ability to stay healthy and continuously be on the pitch. I don't think he ever doubted kind of the ability or talent. It was more of like, I need you healthy, and doubting that side of things. And so that's where we had to work from ground zero, and it was a lot of steps that we took to work on our relationship and our growth. And he's helped me a lot in the way that I see the game, training habits, just the overall. It was a really good platform for me to start my career because it was hard. It was really difficult. It was a situation where I came in. Every single week, I had to prove to him that I could be his guy. And that, for me, just instilled a lot of the competitive habits, competitive training habits, taking care of my body. Like, I just had to do all those things that I think set me up for success later on in my career. And then from a style of play standpoint, like, we worked a lot on kind of preventive defending, when have the ball in, the opponent's half, like how we're defending higher up the field. Smaller things like body shape with balls in behind, my ability to get back. If I step up with a forward, how to get back into the line and recover, and just a lot of long sessions and conversations that were helpful. So we have a great relationship in terms of post Dallas years, and that connection is a lot of respect on both sides, I think.
You, the early years, Duncan McGuire for them in his first years had a fantastic year. A different type, I call him the old school type of striker. How do you play you and Jack? How do you play him?
Yeah, I think it's similar to how we go up against any opponent. I don't think that we go into a lot of games trying to change how we play based on that forward. It's like, hey, let's just do what we've been doing all year long, and that starts with our communication. I think Jack and I, the strength of our relationship is the ability to, after any play that either of us see something happen, it's immediately, hey, I think you need to be here in this. Like, we need to change what we just did because I don't like how that looked. And I think our consistent conversations on the field of figuring things out and also giving instruction has been a key piece of our relationship on the field. So, even we looked at that last Orlando goal, what we could have done differently, 100% just trying to get on the same page. But with him, I think he's a hard worker. He's a guy who just seems to find like a nose for the goal through like his work ethic. I don't think that you look at him and say, oh, he's this, crazy athletic speedster with a lot of flair to him. It's like, no, he's a hard-nosed. He will press, he will work, he will find a way to score goals, which you want in a goal scorer. So it's about matching that energy, matching that intensity, being physical when it calls to be physical, being smart when it calls to be smart, and really trying to keep him out of goal scoring opportunities in the box.
Valer Shevla.
Hey Walker, you've won trophies with Dallas and LAFC and as well as the national team. Are you saying anything to your teammates in the locker room going into this playoffs? You've been in pretty much all the playoffs every season. You've played in the league. You've been in the playoffs. So, are you giving them any advice? Are you talking to them about what's coming up for you?
Yeah, I think we're having lots of discussions with lots of different guys. It's not just coming from me. It's coming from a lot of our players that have been, around the league and have won trophies, as you said. The difference is, I think only one of us has won an MLS Cup, which is Teal. And I thought it was really good in a, meeting the other day, just talking about like what he feels it takes as we enter this stretch. And a lot of that is, sure, the things on the field, but mainly off the field of like, how can we stay positive, stick together, kind of the cliche things that you hear all the time, but it's like, no, how can we make those things a reality? So I thought it was good hearing from him, and again, other guys throughout the course of the past couple weeks as we have gotten into the playoff stretch here, is things that are similar to that. It's how can we stick together? How can we elevate our game just that 1 or 2% to make sure that we can accomplish what we all want, which is another trophy or a first trophy for the club.
One final question for Jacob James.
Walker, I'm talking to Gary just now. He mentioned, kind of the relaxed feel from, you and the other veterans on this team. Does that come from anything other than, maybe experience? Obviously, you guys have, been there, done that, 4 postseasons, I guess. Does that relaxed feel come from anything other than that?
Probably not. I mean, I think a lot of that, I wouldn't even call it I don't like the term relaxed, because I think that kind of presents in a way that means you're not as intense or focused. I think calm is probably better, because that means you're more in control of how you're feeling and the vibes around the group and around training. So I think it's we're focused, we're calm. We've been in this spot before, especially a lot of the older players that Gary probably spoke about. But at the same time, that doesn't take away from our intensity and our preparation as going in to win an MLS Cup. So fine distinction between the two, but I think he's getting to the right point there.